I need all of you modern players to just level with me here. Walk through this situation as I outline it. Now, if you had the opportunity to play any RCQ you wanted, and any number of RCQs, honestly, and price and timing was not a problem at all. You had all the resources, all the time in the world. What is the deck that you would pick right now? Knowing that the August 26th banned and restricted announcement is just around the corner, what is the deck that you would play? Because honestly, there's only one right answer. It's Nadu. Let's be honest with ourselves. It's clearly the best deck in the format right now. And if you cared only about winning and securing yourself an invite from the RCQ, then going to the next level shouldn't have necessarily a price to pay behind it. And that's why Cedric Philip argues in this tweet right here that honestly, at the end of the day, there's one correct answer and there's a bunch of wrong answers trying to defend their kind of wrong takes here, especially because you could go with playing Nadu or playing decks that try and beat Nadu. But then in that sense, you're playing a deck that plays to the percentages of potentially losing to the other half of variance, where now your deck may not necessarily have good matchups, or they might have closer to 50 or heck losing matchups against the other decks that are trying to beat Nadu. So if everyone's trying to beat Nadu, why don't you just play Nadu? Because at the end of the day, even with everyone trying to beat Nadu, it's still at the top of the metagame percentage. If you go to the Goldfish modern metagame page, you'll see that Nadu sits at somewhere around like 15 to 18%, depending on like the day breakdown you go for. I'm trying to work with like 30 days at this point. It's probably around 15%. But if you look at the wider modern metagame, it kind of seems like relatively healthy when you break it down by archetypes and ignore the percentages. We have at the top of the modern metagame a combo deck, a control deck, and an aggro deck. And the control and aggro deck can be seen as kind of both energy decks, but to be fair, one is kind of a one ring deck as well. So it can be classified as like energy aggro, one ring control, and some type of Modern Horizons 3 block constructed combo. But from that, you then get into further decks that have also been enhanced by Modern Horizons 3. And Nadu is kind of the staple piece of that because the deck relies around a card that was more so recently printed, where some of the other decks could exist in a certain variant, although enhanced and really solidified by the power of not only the energy package from Modern Horizons 3, but singular pieces like the Necro Dominance decks are literally because of Necro Dominance. It's a grief scam list, a mono black list that a lot of people have adapted from being the mono black Karn list to now just being like, oh, okay, I don't need to grab cards out of my sideboard. I could just be playing Necro Dominance and just get a bunch of cards and play burn spells to shoot them at your face. Because who knew that even in a world of Nadu, that something like double griefing your opponent is still absolutely busted? I mean, let's be honest with ourselves. If Nadu is going to be the card to get banned, what would be your second pick? Be honest with me. Let me know in the comment section down below, because honestly, the correct answer is grief. Grief has been such a problem in the modern metagame for so long. It's created such terrible play patterns. And honestly, when it comes to competition, when it comes to playing the best decks in the format, it's not just about playing Amulet. It's not just about playing Tron and kind of derping your way to big wins. Really, you should be playing some type of grief scam list. And it's been like that for a while. It's what got Fury banned in the original place, right? And although there is an argument to be said that if grief was gone, maybe Fury would be alive and well right now in the modern format, it probably was, in the whole of it, probably unhealthy. But I will say, Fury dealing 4 damage might actually have been a pretty dang good answer as an additional piece to Nadu. Although I will say, once Nadu gets played, the combo kind of goes off from there. So it's really about dealing with everything beforehand. But if you're playing against a deck that creates a bunch of 1/1s and tries to equip things onto them, Fury being able to split up that damage also might have been good. So maybe we actually stopped our big savior at the end of the day. Fury might actually be the savior that the modern metagame needs, but hey, Wizards of the Coast isn't unbanning anything. We got unbannings of Preordain as the most recent thing. And I mean, look, they're not going to give us Ponder. Let's not do anything like that. They're not going to give us Simian Spirit Guide. They're not going to give us Mox Opal. Some of these cards just should stay banned forever. But although I am not advocating for the Fury ban, maybe it was just the incorrect thing to do at the first place. It maybe should have just been grief. And I think many of us content creators, me included, also admit the fact that maybe we kind of levied for Fury a little too much, and that honestly, it probably should have been maybe just grief at the time, Ren and 6 as well. Although Ren and 6 is a lot less of a problem these days. The 4-color Omnat deck maybe isn't as popular if Nadu is going to be at the top of the roost. But when it comes to playing combo, there is also a plethora of other combo decks that are being played. A lot of them are just kind of hidden behind the ruse of being a mid-range strategy. Now, rhinos and everything has been gone because the whole kind of idea of rhinos is you needed that kind of instant speed cascade that you don't get anymore. And you then played kind of like a very weak mid-range plan that was really supplanted and kind of brought up by a very good combo, which is why Living End still has that good win condition to it, because it's not just about presenting 2 4/4 trampling rhinos at your opponent. It's about presenting a whole board that gained life, that looked at your opponent's hand, that rearranged some cards at the top of the deck, and all that good stuff. It went over top and overwhelmed your opponent, because not a lot of people are playing board wipes anymore. It's not the days of Damnations and sideboards or Wrath of Gods. It's all about single target removal and kind of like almost playing a drag race, where it's not necessarily 2 ships passing in the night and kind of a bunch of people racing to the end. But honestly, drag racing, there is a little element of kind of playing soul, playing that, but it is a race in the elements of kind of being behind someone to catch a bit of drag wind and everything, or kind of stop the drag wind, and then you kind of take your opportunity, cut in front of them, and then go ahead. And that's kind of what you're doing with your interaction. It's not just about stopping the race altogether and getting faster or getting ahead of them or board wiping and stopping the whole thing. It's about taking your advantages, manipulating your opponent's pieces, and then ultimately using some of your sideboard cards to then give you the advantage, push ahead, and use that incremental piece that you just gain, whether it be gaining hexproof for the turn or drawing a bunch of cards, to ultimately get you back out on top. And that's where Modern is right now. It's about interacting with certain key pieces. Catch-alls are very hard to find these days, because even cards like Rest in Peace and things that used to be stalwarts of the Modern metagame just don't exist, because at the end of the day, let's be honest, when they enter the battlefield, they just don't draw a card. You need cards to be able to replace each other. You can't have cards that have singular pieces of value, because your opponent's cards that have singular pieces of value just honestly end up being free cards or just more synergistic with the things that they're doing. Force of Vigor being a pretty good example, where you have to pay mana for a kind of wipeout effect, but your opponent can just exile a card from their hand and cast a card for free and still go on. It's almost like the way Modern is built right now, resources don't matter. The free things are everywhere, and you need to be doing the busted things to keep up with the surprisingly even more busted things than the things that the free decks are doing. I don't know. It's a crazy world to be in, but with that crazy world, it's being told pretty clearly that the story is to play Nadu to get yourself the win. And I think that's not really arguable at this point. I think there's a lot of stubborn people, again, as I mentioned in the beginning, that will be playing their pet decks, that will be playing the decks that they feel like will beat the Nadu decks. I believe Necro Dominance has a pretty good matchup against the Nadu decks, Grief Scam and everything, but that doesn't mean that it has a great matchup against everything else. So you're having to then contend with those percentages. So why not make a bet, play that Nadu deck if resources weren't a concern at all and timing wasn't a concern at all? That would just be the better thing to do, right? To get your RCQ win. But again, as I mentioned, price is a thing too, especially in terms of transferability of some of these cards, and timing is as well, because you're then going to purchase this deck and then it's probably just going to get banned out of you on August 26th. I'd be really surprised if Nadu was not banned on August 26th. The incorrect thing to do would be to ban Shuko, and I think we all agree to that at this point. That's kind of like when they banned a Bridge from Below with the original Hogak days, because when it comes down to it, Bridge from Below really was just an enabler. It wasn't the problem. Hogak was the problem. But Bridge from Below also kind of just read like a Yu-Gi-Oh card. I think we all kind of agree. It was just a really weird card. It didn't do anything when you cast it. It really only did anything in the graveyard. And the way your opponent interacted with it was also kind of strange as well, but relatively easy to deal with. But when you had it out with Hogak, you just kind of combo off. And I mean, I don't need to go too far into it. If you wanted to relive the Hogak days, go to the plenty of like on no ban list Modern videos that exist out there, or I don't know, just go play some Legacy and Vintage. You got the GAC over there. But when it comes to Modern, the bird is the clear choice. If you want to win your RCQs, just play what is good, play what is just doing absolutely well. If all you care about is the invite. Now, if you care about a great tournament experience, maybe you're there for the prize support, the playmat they're giving, the promo, the whatever it is, then fine, play the deck you want. Maybe you want some experience with it. Maybe you want some reps because this is one of the few tournaments you get to play. You'd rather kind of have that experience overall, kind of enhance your gameplay pattern post B&R, and that's perfectly fine as well. There's all these conversations about, you know, kind of splitting the finals where you could kind of get there and have some collusion involved where you could kind of get in multiple people into the RCQ, kind of split with them and everything. And that's not what I'm promoting at all. There's situations like that going on without judges where certain smaller LGSs are able to get events like this going, but without a judge to overrun it, you have people kind of queuing for multiple RCQs and getting their invites, which is a bit of a problem. And I'm not kind of going over any splitting ideas. I already did a video about that and how that whole splitting situation has really caught the community by storm, and how kind of splitting for prizing is really weird when the prizing is very linear, or very kind of one note, where it is a card, it is a singular invite, it is a single item that is tangible, that you can't split up any further. You can't split up a card, you can't necessarily split up an invite. So maybe you might split 4 rewards versus the other, but however you get there, however you handle your prizes, Nadu is the clear deck to pick.